Hi, folks. This is Lisa Conley at Child Care Resources with the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn program, and just welcome to this afternoon's webinar on children's development of and knowledge of and attitudes about differences, about human differences. And I'm really delighted to have as our co-trainer, lead trainer today,
co-trainer,
Theressa Lenear, who has years and years of early learning experience, both professionally and in her own life with her own family. And I think we share this passion of equity and helping children and adults and institutions navigate racism and differences and all that stuff. So we really want to have an interactive webinar today. So there will be some chances for you to do a little bit of reflection. So we'll have some kind of quiet air time where you can jot down or think about your own ideas and reflections. And then we will again try to unmute folks if you have a microphone or phone capacity where we can do that. And then, as always, you can type any questions, stories, suggestions in the question box too, and I'll be monitoring that as we go along. So whichever way is comfortable for you or technologically available to you, go ahead and use those. So I think we'll just turn it over to Theressa. Oh, well, let's get started here.
And I want to kind of say what I feel my expertise are that
Yes,
brought me into this topic is that I'm a mother of 6 grown adults, 5 sons and a daughter, and grandmother of 13, and now a great-grandmother of 2. And all the things that I have learned, in my formal education, my grandchildren and my children have reaffirmed all of these aspects that we're going to talk about this afternoon. So my knowledge really comes from my children and my grandchildren, and I think that was it.
Yeah, I would concur. Nothing like raising a child and raising a child of color to promote a little bit more of reflection and learning on this topic. So there's a picture of us as children, just to give you an idea.
I was 3 years old with this picture.
And I'm guessing I was probably about a year and a half or so, give or take. But yes, in our more younger, glamorous years.
I'm still young and glamorous.
So we have a poll for you, just to get us rolling here, to get some feedback from you. Take a moment here for you to see it. I'm hoping you're being able to see it anyway. There is a poll asking you the question of how comfortable are you in talking with young children about differences? And then you get an option to say very comfortable, comfortable, kind of comfortable, or not at all. And it's fine. Be honest. And we'll talk about this question later on as well, too, as we go throughout the process here. All right, so go ahead and close that poll, and let's see what the results are. Oops. So take it. Sorry, there's a little delay technologically and user delay here too. So it looks like most folks are very comfortable. 60% said you are very comfortable talking with children about differences, and 40% are comfortable. So that's great. Good. So we've got some experienced folks on the call here, so that's wonderful to know. Great. And
all right, so let's really kind of begin to, because I really believe in order to really support children in their development, we really have to really explore our experiences as well. And so I'm assuming that they see this on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. This is my first time doing this webinar. So I would like you to kind of recall your first memory of noticing human differences. What did you notice? About how old were you? Where were you? And who was with you? So we'll take a little time. Think. Tick tock, tick tock.
Don't you be hard being quiet.
And I understand you have the options either to raise your hand and speak or type. Am I correct, Lisa?
That's right.
Okay.
So I will go ahead and unmute everybody and oops, if I can do that. I'm having a hard time unmuting you. So if you want to share with you your first memory, go ahead and either type it in the question box or raise your hand and I can unmute you. So anybody want to share? How about I'm going to call on a couple people who I know are not too shy. Sakithya, would you be willing to talk with us? Ah, there she goes. She's raising her hand.
Is that the Sakithya I know?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Sakithya. Oops, Sakithya, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
It's not working.
Yeah, it's not working. So, Sakithya, I'm sorry. Anybody else? Julie? We'll try Julie Maurerman. Is that all right? Julie?
Hi.
Hi there.
I'm sorry, I'm not as on task as I should be because I can't get this visual screen up.
Oh.
So I'm just going off of audio on my phone.
Okay. So so we're talking about our first memories, our own first memories of noticing human differences. Can you recall what your first memories were?
Oh goodness. Let's see. I think my first memories in particular were just noticing the difference between boys and girls, and bigger people and littler people. Just thinking about it in a more general sense. And then I think moving from that, thinking about racial differences, I was a child and I grew up in a predominantly white community. So I think I remember noticing that in particular when I would watch TV or we would travel out of our community and then I would see people who looked different from me, and I just remember being so very curious and wanting to see more of that.
How old were you? Can you remember?
Oh, let's see. I think my first memory is I was between 5 and 6.
Thank you.
And I should say I'm Euro-American in my background.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Julie. Let's see. I've got Kay Marshall has written into that. Oops. Let me see if I can scroll up here. That she had a friend with a hearing impairment, later elementary school age, and she didn't know why she, quote unquote, talked funny. And then Robin has typed in too, Robin Taft. My best friend growing up was blonde-haired, blue-eyed. We were 5 years old, and I remember watching her mom brushing her hair. Her hair was so fine and tangled easily, so she was crying. I'm Japanese, and my hair is black and long and easy to brush. I remember thinking how I couldn't understand why her hair was so difficult to brush. Oh, and Kay was saying that skin color she remembers early, like in preschool.
Great. These are great responses. Any more?
Kay also talks about a friend with the hearing impairment. I think I embarrassed her by asking, or the way I asked, and I still remember it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Were there any adults around in your memory of your first memory? Were there any adults around?
So Keith, I'm going to try unmuting you again. Let me try it again. Hi, Sakithia, can you hear us at all? Oh, shoot. Let's see, Debbie Thomas is typing in, I don't recall any of my own memories, but my daughter often notices clothing differences and asks why people are dressed differently from her. She's 5, but I'd say that started around age 3.
Okay.
Let's see. Yes. Oh, Sakithia, yes, I can see you in the chat window. So go ahead if you want to type your story in or your recollection. And Tamara was talking about, she had a friend who had seizures. We were all very protective of her. I was 8.
Okay.
Okay, and Sakithia's typing something in too.
I'm still curious if there were any adults present as you explore that first instance of noticing human differences.
So yeah, go ahead and type that in the question. So Sakithia is saying, okay, I can try and contribute this way. I recall noticing human differences at a very early age. For the first 13 years of my life, I grew up in DC. It was always adults, such as parents, extended family members, that talked about race.
And Sakithia, how old do you remember your first memory?
So we got a few more coming in. Oh, here's Sakithia. Gosh, maybe 4 or 5. I'm very positive it was in preschool.
Okay, great.
And Shu Yufan Su, I think. People used to call me Little American just because my hair was red when I was 4 to 6 years old. And Sue, you grew up in, was it in Taiwan? And Tamara says, yes, her teacher was there. I think we were kind to her because the teacher explained her condition to us, the girl with the seizures.
So there was some adult intervention.
Yes.
Okay.
And Sue confirms she grew up in Taiwan. And Sakithia says those conversations and the frequency in which we talked about difference increased when we moved here to the Puget Sound area.
Okay. Okay. Good. This is a good beginning because it really kind of helps us kind of move into what we do know about how children learn and gain their attitudes around differences. Now, I think the question I'm going to ask right now is, and I'm kind of curious to see if you're going to break the traditional response that people give. But when do you think children really start noticing difference? What age group? What age?
So go ahead and just type that in
Yeah.
the question box, and I'll monitor it. So we got one for 5, 2-ish.
Let it roll, let it roll.
Type.
Mm-hmm. Come on, don't be shy.
Waddler, toddler.
Give me an age. Give me an age.
We got one from birth, infancy, from the time they can see clearly. They can differentiate mom's voice from others right away. I think they start from birth. They can tell differences in faces pretty young and in voices, but they can't necessarily voice their knowledge until older. Less than 1, infancy.
Okay. All right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And actually, in the sense of research, they've been able to really pinpoint as young as 6 months old, but we know that children can and do notice differences early on. And even I'm bold enough to say in utero. I love to tell this story about my granddaughter, Desi, who is now 14. But when she was born, we were all there at the hospital. And after she was born, we were able to come into the birthing room. And Desi was laying on the table underneath the heat lamp and just decrying, really exercising those beautiful lungs. And of course, I'm such a well-versed, experienced grandmother. I'm going to go over and soothe my granddaughter. And so I went over to the table and was talking to her in a soft voice with expression. And I usually ask my students, so what do you think happened next? And most of the students would say, well, she cried even more. And I said, you're right. I was like, who's this person? My son came over and put his little pinky finger in her fist, and she naturally did the reflex, grabbed on, and he's talking to her. And I asked my students, what do you think happened? And they said, she stopped crying. Yes. So we know that the infant the fetus is growing and learning and experiencing that world around them, what's inside the womb. And so he woke as he's going to kill me. She recognized her papa's voice because he was always reading stories, talking to her while she was inside developing and growing. And so it's like, oh my God, yes, it does happen even much younger. So we do know what happens earlier. And one of the things that we want to know is, or understand, is that children develop holistically, that they don't develop in silo, that everything is so interconnected, that what they observe in the world, what they're learning from watching us adults, because they're like sponges, they're absorbing everything that they see, hear, and see us do, that they begin to kind of understand societal attitudes and differences, and beginning to really kind of develop their own sense of self. And this really begins at the very beginning. Someone mentioned at birth, that infant already knows how to attract and get attention of adults by looking beautiful and calling for that hugging and kissing. So they're already beginning to do that communication between the two. So we'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're using the work of Julie Bisson, who compiled this overview through several different resources, mainly from the work of Louise Derman-Sparks, but Phyllis Katz, Clark, Pierce, Cross, and Ramsey.
Trying to get that up for you. There is a handout that's attached to the webinar.
There we go.
And I'll also email this out to you too. But this is
great.
What we'll be covering today. We'll have slides too.
So, which was really nice because in the sense of when we started doing trainings within the area around this work, it really helped to have something very simple that people could really kind of follow and understand. So we'll start off with 6 months. So you can see that they're using their senses to learn and to understand. And you're even seeing in these pictures the connection between the adult and the infant. They're noticing skin color, hair texture, sounds and language, intonation, voices and smells. Get the next one. By 18 months, they can correctly place a photograph of themselves in their racial ethnic group. They can select their own picture correctly in response to a group label. However, they cannot do either of these things consistently for pictures of other people. It's really connected to their sense of themselves. They are egocentric.
So it goes along with the regular parts of being, child development. So the way they view the world in general is incorporated.
The world begins with them. By 2 years of age, they're noticing and curious about and asking questions about differences. Between 2.5 and 3.5, you can see that they're becoming aware of and begin to absorb social prevailing negative stereotypes, feelings, and ideas about people, including themselves. They're showing discomfort, dislike, and fear toward a person whose skin color is darker than their own, or who speaks a different language, or has a typical or a physical disability. They may tease or refuse to play with a child because of skin color, gender, or how one talks or dresses. So my experience as a teacher in early learning, I had the young threes. I loved that age, that 2.5 to 3.5 years of age. So much growth and development really happens during that particular time. And I am a nice chocolate brown, as you saw in the picture of me when I was 3. And I predominantly worked with children who were European American, white, with some occasional other children of other ethnicities. But it was not unusual for me to hear comments or having questions asked of me, why is my skin the color it is? Or I needed to go and wash my hands because my hands were dirty. So they were beginning to kind of explore the differences between my skin color and their skin color, and really were feeling comfortable enough to verbalize their inquiry. So at this point in time, the anti-bias curriculum was not out, but my intuition told me to be upfront and honest in the conversation and make it relevant to their understanding based on their age. So let's go into the bathroom and let's wash our hands and let's see what happens. And using those open-ended questions, feeling comfortable in having the conversations. I also remember too, with my own children as being children of color, fearing the opportunity or the experience where negative comments would be said and the impact that it would have upon their sense of self. As a mother, that was pretty hard to kind of anticipate, but I also knew I needed to prepare them as well to feel comfortable and successful. for the next one?
Sure. Or I have a story too. I'm thinking about my own daughter who is Chinese in heritage, and shortly after we adopted her, we went to a park, and she was probably about 2.5 years old, and there was a blonde boy who was maybe about her age, a little older, who didn't want to take turns on the slide. He pushed her out of the way.
Ooh.
And which is fine. I mean, that happens on the playground when kids get together. But the next time we went to the playground, there was another blonde boy, a completely different blonde boy, but my daughter ran up to him and shoved him. And I'm thinking, in her mind,
she had sorted and categorized.
She had sorted and categorized on her own. I mean, there wasn't like messages coming from the outside world that blonde boys were mean, but in her own personal experience, she had sorted and categorized it on her own. And she had noticed those differences and noticed what that child, the initial child, looked like and applied it to others. So,
and that's an important concept to kind of understand, that children at this age are naturally, in making sense of their world, will sort and categorize, putting, all females in one category, or, so they're it's a natural developmental process. And so really kind of understanding that developmental process, really then being able to kind of also then key in and cue in when we see the sorting and categorizing around what in our country that has been really highly identifiable is race, class, gender, and abilities. That's what children are noticing that we adults really focus in on. And so the ability to categorize and sort can then be transferred to those areas of identity as well. So it's really important for adult intervention and interaction in providing the correct information and talking through. You going to the next one?
Sure.
Okay. So this is an interesting age too, age 4. They're seeking labels for racial and ethnic identity. They have their own theories about what causes disability, skin tone, and gender. Now, at this age, it's really hard for 4-year-olds to open a new door and thinking of big concepts without closing another one. And one of the things that we have noticed and what we really do encourage is children need to experience all kinds of things in their life. What is interesting, when they see a person in a wheelchair, they're naturally curious. What has caused that person? Why can't they walk? Did they do something wrong? They're full of questions, and they begin to ask the questions. And then we adults, feeling the uncomfortableness, will say, shh, don't say that. That's not nice. That's not okay. And we're now saying and giving another message. And what do you think the message is? Yes, I'm asking you a question.
So what do you think the message is when we shush a child for asking a question about differences? That it's bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, saying good question.
Mm-hmm. So either overtly we give that sense of feeling that it's wrong, or our body language can give that child that same message. So as I said before, children are like sponges. They are watching everything that we do and everything that we say. And our body actions speak louder than words. So we can say that we're okay, but if we are concerned about something, children can pick it up in our body language. So yes,
Yeah, Theresa, we've got a couple more
good
answers too. Debbie's saying, I think it shuts down their natural curiosity.
Yes.
And Kay is clarifying, she would say to the child, good question.
Yes, it's wonderful. Yes. And so, again, in helping our families to kind of understand, this is normal for children to ask questions. And so we really want to have an environment where children feel comfortable to ask questions, because they're going to come back and regurgitate what they see and hear. That's what I always tell my students. They're going to test it out. They want to see. They're actually doing a little research. That's what they're doing. They've got this theory. They've been hearing it and seeing it. Now they're going to see if it's really true. They're going to try it out on you and to see what your reaction is. And so it's really important for us to be comfortable. And if you are uncomfortable, take a breath, breathe, and then respond. So yes.
Great.
By 5, have developed a core sense of racial, ethnic identity, begin to explore what it means to be one race or another. Societal bias can undermine their self-esteem and ability to build a positive identity within their racial, ethnic groups. My grandson, Jaden, who's now 6, and my youngest son, they live in Europe. They live in a small country next to Russia called Estonia. And so my grandson, Jaden, is bilingual, which I love. So it's going to take him, it will definitely work in his favor. And the country is fairly Nordic, white, blue eyes, blonde hair. And he has not begun, but he has been, since he was 4 up to now, really exploring where does he fit in that environment. His first thing that he said to his Estonian grandmother was that she couldn't come to America because she wasn't brown, because America is where all the brown people live. So we bring the family over twice a year, in the summer and winter time, holiday time. And with all his uncles and aunties and cousins and friends and extended family members, he has seen a critical mass of brownness. And it really has made an impression upon him in the sense of looking at who he is as a cultural being compared to others. And so he is trying to figure out how he fits. And what we want him to be is to be cross-cultural, that he has 2 cultures that he is interweaving into his life experience. So it has been a wonderful opportunity for me to have these conversations with adults around. And it's interesting how people will either cue in and lean into the conversation or avert their eyes another way.
Great.
You have a story you want to tell?
Yeah, I was thinking about, my daughter Jen, too, again in kindergarten, where she came home one day and apparently they had done sort of that typical kindergarten practice of having sort of the child of the day during their circle time, and every child got a turn to be that child. And so they got to sit in the middle of the circle and kids asked them questions and they got to talk about themselves, and she was sort of upset about it. And I asked, well, what did kids ask you? And she said, they asked me what my favorite Chinese restaurant is. They didn't ask me what my favorite Mexican restaurant is. And so I asked her, why do you think that is? And she said, I think it's because I'm Chinese. And she was seemingly really agitated and upset about it. And so we sat there for a few moments, and I had one of those rare, brilliant parent moments where the question came to my mind to ask her is like, do you ever feel like you have to choose between being Chinese and being American? At 5 years old, she said, yes, I feel like I have to choose. So we had the conversation about you don't have to choose, and that other people might want to categorize you, but you're both. And it's not 50-50. It's it's you 100%. And so it's been interesting to see her self-development in that realm of the way other people view her, as well as how she views and talks about herself.
Yeah.
And having to deal with questions about where are you from, and she'll say, I'm from Seattle. And,
What do you mean, where am I from? I'm from right here.
I know. Yeah. I mean, this was when she was 5 and 6 years old. She started getting that
That's an awful
tone.
heavy weight that children have to carry.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the other piece that I worry about it. So it's so really important for us adults to really wrap that cultural blanket around all of our children, children of color, white children. They need to have that cultural blanket wrapped around them so that they have a strong sense of self.
Yeah.
And help them to kind of understand, who you are. Other people may see you differently, but that's their issue.
Yeah.
Trust and believe in who you are.
Yeah.
And we have to keep reinforcing that through their childhood, their youth, young adult,
old adults. But yes, I mean, that societal bias coming into play. And I think, to me, I think that bias is, the children are absorbing that all along, and how it starts to show itself, and they're having the cognitive capacity to sort of make a little bit more sense of it by the time they're 5 and 6.
One of the things that we're also learning too, as we're going on, I know we need to keep going further through, but children do internalize those negative messages, and to the point of a lot of our children who come into this country, or who are able to already speak another language, recognize that their language does not have the same value as English, and will stop speaking their first language, which is an asset when we think about the ability of being able to be bilingual, to speak multiple languages. I wish I could. I wish I could. So by 6, 7, and 8 years of age, children are continuing to construct and elaborate on their ideas of their own and others' racial ethnic identities. They're developing group identities, and this we're noticing is even happening even earlier now, the whole sense of group identity. They're interested in learning more about their identities, have developed cognitive skills to analyze their own ideas, and begin to understand the influence of stereotypes and bias on them. So hit the next one.
Sure.
By 9 or 10, attitudes about race and ethnicity have solidified. And this is key. We've got from in utero all the way up to this age to really set things right, to really help children to kind of really understand the world. By the age 9 and 10, their ideas around the world is solidified. So at this point, for any changes to happen, we have to deconstruct what they know to reconstruct the reality. Attitudes tend to stay constant unless they experience consistent challenges that cause them to rethink their beliefs. So we've got that large window of opportunity, and I really think that this is the most beautiful time in the sense of really helping our children be the change makers that we need in this world. Yes. So, have any thoughts? Any thoughts
from you all? Yeah. Any reflections? Do you see yourself or your own children or children that you have in your circle of family and friends in this? Go ahead. Yeah. Type those questions in.
We are very patient.
So we'll just slide down to this slide. So what questions does this bring up for you? And we can go back to the other one. And even if you don't want to share them, jot them down or think about them too. because we do have some homework for you. This will be a part 1 of 2, maybe an ongoing series. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I'm still talking about these things.
So think about the kinds of questions and aha moments this brings up for you. And even if it brings up some feelings. And
well, I'm going to share a couple of questions that I had to really kind of work through. And I see myself as really knowledgeable, pretty knowledgeable. And I'm also becoming aware that not becoming aware, I've always known this, that I don't know everything about everything. I'm not an expert. Learning is a lifelong journey. And until we jump in and engage in this conversation, we really don't know what comes up for us inside. But I do remember my first response. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say when the question around my skin color as a teacher. I didn't know. I didn't have the tools at that time, because those are things we didn't talk about in class. And so I caught myself with this emotional response that kind of come up, but I also knew that I needed to be able to respond to the child in a way that was supportive and not punitive. So I took a deep breath and really kind of, and I was honest with the child in the sense of, I have to think about this, because you've asked a question or you've pointed something out to me, that I need to think about this for a little bit. But I will come back and we'll talk more about it, but I need some time. So even in the sense of when we're caught off guard, it's important to be able to respond to that child's question or that child's comment or that child's behavior. But also knowing that you don't have to do it at that point in time, that you can be thoughtful, take some time and think about what it is so that you can get back to the child. So I've been learning all these different things. We are human. We have feelings, and certain things will trigger. But we can use it for, in a positive, good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
Any responses?
Yeah, a couple of responses. Kay said she just can't get the recent anti-Muslim comments out of her head.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I mean, it feels like history repeating itself.
Yes.
Yet again. Yes, and the kind of prejudices, isms that children are growing up with now it brings a different dimension to this conversation, yes. I think.
And I think that's the conversation that we'd be needing to have. I mean, I was talking with another colleague, and their child was wondering, does that mean we have to leave because they're Muslim? And so you can see how children are taking these messages of I'm just going to say it, of hate, of hate, with so much emotion behind it. It's frightening. If it's frightening for us adults, it's frightening for our children. I saw a couple of other answers come up.
Yeah, Kay is saying she feels more comfortable talking with her kindergarten students, than adults. Why?
Oh, you're asking the question why?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
There is a certain innocence in children. Adults can be intentionally mean, and there's repercussions. I think for me, what has been a challenge sometimes is talking with my own family members around issues. My family is very diverse. My daughter-in-laws are white, so we have multi-ethnic children. And And within there's sexual orientation differences within our family. There's religion differences within our family, class difference within our family. And so there's been some interesting conversations. And as social beings, we want to be loved and accepted. And so it's hard. I think I can talk to strangers much easier than I can talk to my family, because a stranger, I feel that will go our different ways. Family is there for life. They are your family for life, and so having those hard conversations, I've had to say, I will not tolerate that kind of language in my house, that kind of discussion in my house. If you want, you need to leave. And it didn't feel very comfortable.
No.
There was some anger and repercussions, but we came back together. But yes, that was just a value for me, that we need to be open and welcoming. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's true. Yeah. Yeah, and Kay's saying that, thank you, as well as I feel like my knowledge and experience and opinions are mainstream and normal, smiley face, but they feel really liberal in some groups. And yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, I think we can feel like we're outside of it, and it takes some courage to take a stand, like Theressa said, because we are so social and want to be part of the group. To sort of take a stand that feels like it's outside of that group is really hard. And
adults can get mean and nasty and call those, oh, you're so liberal. I mean,
yes,
they definitely will use techniques to kind of chop you down, and so it does take some courage to hold steady on your convictions, but it's so important to model that for children.
Yes,
yes. So take a deep breath and
I thought about that too, that modeling for children and kind of interrupting some of those questions and conversations when my daughter was younger, and when she was old enough to sort of have an opinion about it, sort of around that same time, about 5 or 6 years old, and still getting questions in the grocery stores like, where's she from? How much did it cost? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, really invasive questions that I just want to buy my quart of milk and cereal and get out of here. And the child is in the cart with me, or, walking next to me, and talking about her as a third person. So I asked her one time, what do you feel about that? And she said, I just really don't like strangers asking questions, personal questions about our situation, whatever. And I shared that I didn't either. And said, well, how would you like me to respond to that? Would you like me to answer? Do you want to answer? Because I thought maybe she wants to, engage as well. And she said, no, I think you can answer and just be funny. Just tell them something funny and walk off. That was like the wisest advice ever. Just like, yeah, I don't know. How much did how much did your car cost out there, and walk off? Get a question like that, or where are you from? Walk away. Exactly. So yeah.
And I think the other piece that I think about that's important too is that there's inequity in the sense of who gets to stand up and speak out for children. So there's the other piece of wanting our children to be safe. And there are certain situations that it's important for children to kind of have a sense of is this environment safe for me to speak up? So yes, we want them to be strong and have a voice, and to be safe. And it's trying to find that balance. It's really kind of hard. So it's kind of like, for me and my children, I had to kind of help give them cues of being able to read the environment. and know when and where and how, so that it could be safe.
Yeah.
So,
So any other questions or thoughts this brings up for you? Go ahead and type them in the question box there, and I'll keep looking. So we'll go back to this other slide here.
so kind of to sum it up, all that, the children are curious about their own and others' race and ethnicity, that they develop a personal sense of self and multiple social identities, that they learn about the social identities through both overt as well as subtle messages, subtle messages. There are things that are just very in your face, and some things that seem to be hidden, but you know what it means. They learn about who is and isn't important. And I think, that has always been hard for me when I see that happen, when a child realizes that they are invisible. It's a hard thing for me as an adult to see. Try to make sense of all they see and hear. And there is a lot that they see and hear. Develop pre-prejudice and later prejudice as they absorb messages from family, peers, media, and their communities. They are totally bombarded from the time that they're up to the time they go to sleep with all these kind of messages out there. And begin to be aware of how the power dynamics are linked to social identities. So we think about children are really learning fast about money. Really, actually, credit cards. Mom, where's that card you have that you pay with things? But also understanding, I know here it was really hard for my children when we moved from Alaska, because they had never really seen people who were homeless. And so they didn't understand people standing on the corner asking for money. They didn't know what that meant. And I had to explain to them some social conditions. And so children are beginning to kind of look at class in the sense of, well, rich seem to be happy, poor people seem to be without stuff. So they're beginning to kind of make some judgments there.
Okay. So, actually, Kay, I hope it's all right if I read your comment, because it's really funny, and
I can't see. I got my reading glasses on, and I still can't see what that is.
So Kay is saying that she was having to deal when she had her children when they were young. She got tired of people making weird comments about having 3 boys, and she said to strangers, "I wasn't trying to have a girl. I was just trying to have some fun." Sorry, everyone. But I love that. I love having that is a perfect comeback for an intrusive question.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wish I would have had something like that in my back pocket.
Me too. Because having 6 children, people said, "Did I know about birth control?" Yes, and I was having fun.
So Julie has typed into, "I appreciate all that you're sharing so much. I have lots of thoughts about my own children's and grandsons' development and regarding the students I work with. I also think about an opportunity Play and Learn presents. What would you share about how some strategies, considerations for us as families and young ones from diverse backgrounds come together?" Ooh.
That could be part of part 2.
I know, good segue, Julie. Thank you. So we realized that, Theressa and I started talking about this webinar. You could people have spent a lifetime studying and talking about this topic. And so we tried to break it down into a digestible chunk for this afternoon, and then we really feel like we need to do a part 2 webinar sometime early next year.
Most likely a part 3, because there's the institutional implications.
Okay.
Yeah.
we're in it for the long haul here. So what we're thinking for this part 2 is what we can do as adults to guide and support children's learning about differences in the attitudes and all of that. And then thinking about the context of the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group. What are some what can we do to create those teachable moments and support it? And then how can we also anticipate or figure out ways to handle those unanticipated teachable moments when they
those uncomfortable moments
when they present themselves. And then keeping in mind, that we have that dual group dynamic of having children and adults in the room too.
Yeah.
And so,
and how we can model. I mean, I think that's the main thing is the modeling for our families.
Yes.
And our children.
Right. And I think you're right, Julie. I mean, I think we've got lots of prime opportunities. And when I travel and visit the different groups that we have, there are so many of them are multicultural, or at least there's differences, even if it's a kind of a monoracial group. There might be some class differences, or it might be, when I think about some of the Spanish-speaking groups, Latino groups, they might be people coming from different countries of origin, where there are layers of ideas about what that means, and different experiences. So I think this is a great place for children and their caregivers to kind of explore these issues, and giving caregivers some tools through our modeling and through our conversations in the group on how they can support their children. I think
that's correct.
So we hope that you'll be on for this part 2, and we'll record it just like we've done this. So if you can't join live, you'll be able to participate somehow. And preparation.
Homework. I like that. I like homework.
So, I mean, this is the kind of topic that does require some reflection and thinking. And so in preparation for that phase, or the part 2, we'd like you to really think about the information and learn more about anything that really piques your curiosity. And really think about what you would need to feel competent and comfortable to support children's and caregivers' learning. Let's say in the Kaleidoscope group, because it sounds like folks were fairly comfortable talking with young children. But think about it in relationship to your role as a facilitator in a group. And then, just do a little observation of children in your life or in your group, and see if you find any real life examples of the process that we've been talking about today, and then again, reflect on your role as the facilitator and sharing this kind of information with caregivers. And we would love to hear back from you as you're going through this, to help us structure the next conversation, and to weave in your stories and your observations, any questions you might have too. We'd be happy. And we welcome it, we encourage it, we want it.
And we expect it.
Oh, there we go.
Because you're working with young children.
Yeah.
It's part of their development.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we even have a little handy handout that's hopefully you can access through the webinar here, and again, I'll just email this out to everybody. So that has essentially these questions, and I really, really would encourage you to jot your ideas down. It's nice to think about, but just jot them down too. And to that end, we actually have a little door prize of a journal. It looks like that. It's much prettier than what the picture is. I don't know. Jorge, do you want to pull? Yeah. Jorge's joined us too. He's in the background. You want to say hi to Jorge?
Hey, everybody. All right, let's see here. So, without looking, I'm pulling this one right here.
Let's see if she.
You got it?
I think they're all she today. She's on the call. You have to be present to win. She's not in here. Shoot. All right.
She's
Yeah, she was with us earlier. Tamara. So maybe she had to run off, but I know she was with us earlier. Tamara from Center for Human Services up in Shoreline. Yeah, Bothell area. So, okay, Tamara. So, any last thoughts, questions before we close out today? Give you a few moments. Gotta thank you so much. Comment?
Well, I have to say that this was a little challenging for me because I'm such a relational person that not having that opportunity to engage back and forth, I had to keep looking at you.
I know.
Like,
Theressa needs eye contact.
I need eye contact. And I was doing all this hand movement, like that's who I am. And so, but thank you for participating in the method that we had available, and hope that we will be together again for part 2.
Yeah. So, and then we have a question: when will the part 2 be? And I think Theressa and I just need to look at our calendars, and we'll let you all know soon.
We'll make it soon, definitely.
Oh, and nice to hear Theressa. She and I were classmates at Pacific Oaks.
Oh, who's that?
Julie Maurerman.
Huh. Hello, fellow Pacific Oakser. There are a lot of us around.
Yes, there are. So, well, thank you all. I really appreciate your thoughtful input, and you're sticking with us throughout the webinar here, and looking forward to seeing everybody probably sometime February.
Yeah, gonna make it. We'll make it soon.
Yeah. So, and additional resources too. I'm sorry. So, if you want to learn more, on the Pinterest board, or on our Pinterest board, we have a board that's actually has some links to articles and information. I think all of these are on there as well. But when I asked Theressa what were her top 3 go-to sources, these were.
Yes.
And then, and the slideshow. So I also wanted to let you know too that we do have a webinar coming up in January on the 12th or the 13th. And I've sent out a notice for that, and that's 1 to 2:30. And that one is going to be about supporting children who are dual language learners and their families, with some information about the importance of maintaining home language and how children learn language. So you'll get some related information. And at that point, too, we'll also be releasing 3 new caregiver lesson guides that are related to home language development and support. So we're excited about that. So that's our January one. So the next one after that will likely be
and I'm a
2.
strong advocate of dual language as well. So I'm dabbling in that as well.
Great. So, well, thank you, everybody. I'll let you all go and enjoy the rest of your afternoons, and happy holidays.
Thank you again.
Thanks.